Welcome back, deep divers. We're diving deep today into something, well, fascinating.
Fascinating is a good word for it, yeah.
Okay, so it's this Japanese concept, Ikigai. Have you heard of this?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's getting more attention these days, for sure.
It is. It is. And for good reason. It's often translated as, like, a reason for being.
Yeah. Or the happiness of always being busy, which, sounds a little strange to Western ears, maybe.
It does, right? Like, always busy. Who wants that?
But it's not about, being stressed and overloaded. It's more about having a purpose, a drive, something that keeps you going. And get this, it's thought to be one of the reasons why people in Japan, especially in Okinawa, live so long.
Right. So Okinawa, that's where things get really interesting. It's one of those rare blue zones.
Exactly. Places around the world where people live longer and healthier lives than just about anywhere else.
And we're not talking about just a few extra years, right?
Yeah.
Okinawa has a statistically significant number of centenarians.
Oh, absolutely. Way more than average. We're looking at 24.55 centenarians per 100,000 inhabitants. That's huge.
It is huge. So that's the big question the book we're diving into tackles.
Ikigai, the Japanese secret to a long and happy life. It really tries to get at this, yeah.
Yeah. Is Ikigai the reason why these folks in Okinawa are living so long? What's the connection to staying active and engaged as you age?
Mm-hmm.
It's what we all want.
Right. To live a long and happy life, we want to uncover the secret, right?
Exactly. So the book takes us to a specific place in Okinawa.
Okimi, in northern Okinawa, a little village, often called the Village of Longevity.
Yeah, it's known for having the highest life expectancy globally. So the book dives into what they're doing differently in Okimi.
Right. And they mention some things that, might contribute to this. Things like, have you ever heard of shikuwasa?
Shikuwasa. I don't think so.
It's the citrus fruit. Kind of like a lime, but it's packed with antioxidants. And they drink this moringa tea made with super pure local water. Really makes you think.
It does. Could these little things be part of the puzzle?
Well, and this is where it gets complex, right? Longevity isn't just about one thing. It's this whole interplay of lifestyle factors. And the book brings up another one, moai.
Moai.
Yeah. Basically, these are social groups, people with common interests who support each other.
Okay, so like a club?
Kind of, but deeper. It's like a built-in support system. They help each other out emotionally, sometimes even financially.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. And, we know social connection is important.
Huge for longevity. Huge. Research backs that up all the time. So right off the bat, we see how Ikigai might be working with, their diet, their environment, these strong social bonds.
Right. Okay, so we've got this Ikigai idea, this village where people live forever, and some hints about why. But what about us? What can we actually do?
Well, the book calls them anti-aging secrets, which sounds a little, gimmicky.
Yeah, like a quick fix.
But really what it's getting at is that it's the small habits that add up.
The things we do every day.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Right. And it really emphasizes this idea of mens sana in corpore sano, that old saying.
A sound mind and a sound body.
Classic, but so true. They're saying keeping your mind active and adaptable is a huge part of staying young. It's not just about your body.
Interesting. And they actually bring in this neuroscientist, Shlomo Brzezinski. He talks about how our brains need constant stimulation.
Right. If we're always doing the same things, our brains kind of switch off,
So we need to keep learning, keep trying new things to keep those neural connections firing.
Exactly. And there's actually research showing that mental training can improve mood and self-image. So even if it feels tough to learn something new, it can make you feel better about yourself.
That's cool. Okay, so keeping our brains sharp. What else?
Well, stress. The book talks about how chronic stress can age us faster.
That makes sense. We all feel it.
Right. But the book gets into the science of it, like how stress triggers immune responses that can actually damage healthy cells, and even shorten telomeres, those things that protect our chromosomes.
So it's like the stress of modern life is different than what our ancestors faced.
Yeah. They had those sudden bursts of stress, right? Fight or flight. But we have this constant low-level stress from technology, from work, from just, everything.
Always on. And it's wearing us down. So what's the antidote?
Well, the book talks about mindfulness, bringing your attention to the present moment, quieting the mind.
Okay, mindfulness. But isn't all stress bad?
Well, that's where it gets tricky. The book talks about this Dr. Howard S. Friedman. He found that a little bit of stress, when it's balanced with dedication to work and purpose, can actually be good for longevity.
Really? So it's about finding that sweet spot. Not too much, not too little.
Yeah, that seems to be the key. And of course, physical activity is crucial at any age, but especially as we get older.
Yeah, got to keep moving.
Right. And it doesn't have to be crazy workouts. Just walk more, take the stairs, do things you enjoy.
Okay, so mind, body. What about sleep?
Ah, sleep. The book calls it an anti-aging tool, and it talks about melatonin, this hormone our bodies produce.
Melatonin. Yeah, I've heard of that.
It's a powerful antioxidant, and it seems to be involved in a ton of things like boosting immunity, protecting against heart disease.
Okay, so good sleep, good melatonin. But doesn't melatonin production decrease as we get older?
It does, unfortunately. Around age 30, it starts to decline. So the book talks about things we can do to support healthy sleep, diet, sunlight, reducing stress.
Usual suspects.
Yeah.
But good reminders.
Definitely. And then there's attitude. The book mentions a study that found that people who live longer tend to have a more positive outlook, and they're good at managing their emotions.
So it's not just what you do, but how you think about it.
Right. And this idea of stoicism comes up, not letting things get to you, staying calm.
Less stress, longer life. I like it.
And there's this great quote in the book from Alexander Imish. He was at one point the oldest man alive. He said, "The life you live is equally or more important for longevity."
Powerful. So it's not just about genes. It's about how you live your life.
Absolutely. Oh, and the book shares this song from a nearly 100-year-old woman in Ogimi. It's like an ode to longevity. She talks about enjoying food, waking up early, taking walks, finding serenity.
Sounds like a good life.
Right. So simple, but so wise. Okay, now ready for a little psychology.
Hit me with it.
So the book ties Ikigai to this concept called logotherapy.
Logotherapy. Sounds intense.
It's a school of psychology developed by Viktor Frankl.
Okay, I know Viktor Frankl. Man's search for meaning.
That's him. He was a prisoner in Auschwitz. His experiences really shaped his thinking. Logotherapy is all about finding meaning in life, having a purpose.
So how is it different from regular therapy?
Well, Frankl said, in logotherapy, the patient sits up and listens to things that are hard to hear. In psychoanalysis, they lie down and say things that are hard to say. So it's less about digging into the past and more about looking forward.
Interesting. And the book actually compares them, point by point.
Yeah.
Logotherapy is about the future, meaning, purpose. Psychoanalysis is more about the past, introspection.
Yeah. And Frankl believed that even in the worst circumstances, we have this ultimate freedom to choose our attitude. That's powerful.
It is. So this connects to Ikigai. How?
Well, the book talks about this thing called existential frustration, like when you feel your life lacks meaning.
Yeah, I think we've all felt that at some point.
Right. But Frankl saw this as a catalyst for change. Like, it pushes you to find your purpose.
Makes sense. And he often quoted Nietzsche, right? He who has a why live can bear almost anyhow.
Exactly. Having a reason to live makes the tough stuff bearable. Frankl also believed that our well-being, like mental and even physical, depends on this tension between what we've done and what we still aim for.
So we need challenges to thrive.
It seems so. And this leads to Sunday neurosis, that feeling of emptiness some people get when they don't have work.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling.
Right. Without that structure, that purpose, you feel a bit lost. And this is where Ikigai comes in.
So finding your Ikigai helps you avoid that Sunday neurosis.
Yeah. Gives you a reason to get out of bed.
Love it. Okay, so logotherapy, meaning purpose. What else does the book say?
Well, it gets into the nitty-gritty of logotherapy, like some key ideas. First, you don't create meaning, you discover it. Second, focusing too much on a goal can backfire. And third, humor is important.
I like that one.
Right. And ultimately, it reminds us that we all have the capacity for good and bad, and our choices matter. To illustrate this, the book shares a bunch of case studies from Frankl's work.
Okay, like what?
Well, his own experience in the camps, obviously. Talk about finding meaning in the face of adversity.
Wow, yeah.
And then there's this case of a diplomat who wasn't happy. He didn't need therapy. He needed purpose. So he changed careers and found it.
So sometimes it's about a bigger shift, not just talking about your problems.
Right. Then there's this really touching story about a suicidal mother. She found meaning in caring for her paralyzed son, and a doctor who was grieving his wife. He found solace in knowing he spared her the pain of outliving him.
Those are heavy, but also hopeful in a way.
Totally. It shows that meaning can be found anywhere. Okay, ready for another therapy?
Bring it on.
This one is called Morita therapy. It's also an Eastern approach, but it's a bit different.
How so?
Well, it focuses on accepting your feelings, but controlling your actions. The goal is still to find your purpose, but the approach is different. It's less about changing your emotions, more about doing what needs to be done.
Okay, so less talking, more doing.
Exactly. And it has these three core principles. 1, accept your feelings. 2, do what you should be doing. And 3, discover your life's purpose through action.
It was like a roadmap for finding your way.
Kind of, yeah. And it has these 4 phases, starting with isolation and rest, then moving to light activities, then more active ones, and finally going back to your life but with these new practices.
He's very structured.
It is.
Yeah.
And lastly, the book talks about Nikan meditation. It's all about self-reflection.
Okay, how does that work?
You ask yourself 3 questions. What have I received from others? What have I given? And what problems have I caused?
So it's about taking responsibility, looking at your own actions.
Exactly. So we've got logotherapy and morita therapy. They both, in their own ways, lead to this idea of finding your Ikigai.
It's like the fuel that keeps you going. But it doesn't sound easy.
It's not. It takes effort. But the book then introduces this other concept that's kind of the key to living your Ikigai, flow.
Flow. Okay, I've heard of this, like being in the zone.
Exactly. That state where you're totally absorbed in what you're doing. Time flies by, you're totally engaged.
Yeah, it feels good. But isn't that different from just, like, having fun?
It is. Flow is more than just pleasure. It's challenging. It's engaging. The book quotes Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who kind of coined the term. He says it's about complete involvement, where nothing else seems to matter.
So how do we get into this flow state?
Well, the book outlines these 7 conditions for achieving flow, based on the work of Owen Schaffer.
7 conditions. Okay, lay them on me.
Okay, so first, you need to know what you're doing, obviously. Second, you need to know how to do it. Third, you need to know how well you're doing, like, are you making progress? Fourth, if the activity involves movement or a path, you need to know where you're going.
Okay, those make sense. What are the other 3?
Fifth, you need to perceive significant challenges in the activity. Sixth, you need to believe you have the skills to meet those challenges. And 7th, you need to be free from distractions.
So it's like a balance between challenge and skill, and no distractions.
Exactly. The book then offers a few strategies for cultivating flow.
I'm all ears.
Okay, so 1, choose a task that's a little outside your comfort zone, but still achievable. You know, like Hemingway said, sometimes I write better than I can. Push yourself a little.
I like that.
2, have a clear objective, but focus on the process, not just the outcome. Like Einstein said, a happy man is too satisfied with the present to dwell on the future.
Enjoy the journey.
Yes. Yeah. And 3, this one's tough. Concentrate on one thing at a time. No more multitasking.
Yeah, right? In today's world, who can do that?
I know, it's hard. But the book argues that multitasking actually makes us less productive.
I've heard that. Like, it's not actually doing multiple things at once. It's just switching back and forth really fast.
Exactly. And it's less efficient. The book even mentions studies showing that multitasking lowers productivity and even IQ.
Yikes. Okay, so no multitasking. But how do we actually avoid distractions?
Well, the book has some good tips, like no screens first thing in the morning or last thing at night, turn off notifications, maybe even have technology-free days.
It sounds nice, actually, like a digital detox.
Right. And some other ideas. Limit checking email, use the Pomodoro technique to work in focused bursts, create rituals to start and end your work, train yourself to stay present, have a dedicated workspace, lots of practical stuff.
Okay, so flow is good, distraction is bad. But what about, those times when you just have to grind it out?
Well, the book brings up this Japanese concept, ganbaru. It means to persevere, to do your best, even with the small stuff. It's about having a strong work ethic, even with mundane tasks.
Okay, so give it your all, even when it's not glamorous. I can dig that.
And they talk about takumi. These are artisans with, like, super specialized skills.
Artisans? Like what kind of skills?
All sorts. Like, Toyota has takuni who can make very specific screws by hand, and almost all turntable needles in the world are made in Japan.
Wow, that's incredible.
Right. There's even a story in the book about a woman selecting bristles for makeup brushes. Super focused, precise work.
Yeah, it's almost meditative.
It is. And get this, Steve Jobs was a huge admirer of Japanese craftsmanship. He even had a connection with this takumi who made porcelain from, like, this special mountain clay.
Wow, so what's the connection to Ikigai and flow?
Well, the book argues that these takumi, these Japanese artisans, they embody this idea of finding joy in mastery. They have their Ikigai and they find flow in their craft.
So it's not just about the outcome. It's about the process, the dedication.
Exactly. And it's connected to their culture, too. Zen philosophy, Japanese cuisine. It's all about that sophisticated simplicity, that attention to detail.
I'm thinking about Jiro Dreams of Sushi, that documentary about the sushi master. He's a total Takumi.
Totally. And the book even ties this to the Shinto belief in kami, the spirits that exist in nature and objects.
Okay, how so?
Well, they see the Takumi's role as almost breathing life into their creations while also respecting nature.
So it's like a spiritual practice.
In a way, yeah. And speaking of artists with Ikigai, the book talks about Hayao Miyazaki.
The Studio Ghibli director. Love his movies.
He's got a clear Ikigai. His films explore these big themes, and even though he's retired, he keeps drawing. The passion is still there.
That's inspiring.
Right. And there are other examples. Einstein, Murakami, they all worked until the very end, driven by their passions.
So find your Ikigai and never retire.
Pretty much. But the book also talks about microflow, finding joy in everyday tasks.
Microflow, like what, doing the dishes?
Exactly. The book gives the example of Bill Gates. He washes dishes mindfully. It's about bringing that focus and intention to even the mundane stuff.
Okay, so it's not just about big life-changing things. It's about finding those moments of flow in everyday life.
Right. And the book talks about rituals, how they can help create flow. Like in Japan, rituals are a big deal. And the book suggests we break down our goals into smaller ritualistic steps.
Makes them seem less daunting.
Yeah. And the point is, the happiness isn't just in achieving the goal, it's in the doing, in those rituals. The book even concludes that the happiest people spend more time in flow.
Okay, so flow is like this key ingredient to happiness and ultimately Ikigai. But how do we actually know what our Ikigai is?
Well, the book has a suggestion. Reflect on those activities that bring you into flow. Ask yourself why you enjoy them, what they have in common.
So it's like a process of self-discovery.
Exactly. And it describes flow as a muscle. The more you practice, the stronger it gets, and the closer you get to your Ikigai.
Okay, so we've got some ideas about how to find our Ikigai, how to cultivate flow. But what about those people who have really lived long lives? What can we learn from them?
Well, this next section of the book is all about that. It dives into the wisdom of supercentenarians, people who have lived to 110 and beyond.
Wow. So what are their secrets?
Well, Mizukawa, she lived to be 117. Her advice: eat and sleep and you'll live a long time. You have to learn to relax. Pretty basic, right?
Basic, but important. It's like, don't overcomplicate things.
Right. Then there's Maria Capovilla, who lived to be 116. She believed that never eating meat helped her, along with dancing and crafts. So diet and staying active.
Keeping busy.
Yep. And Jean Calment, the oldest person ever recorded at 122, had a great sense of humor. She said everything's fine, even as her health declined, and she rode her bike till she was 100.
Wow, what a spirit. What about the guys?
Walter Bruning, who lived to be 114, said to keep your mind and body busy, eat 2 meals a day, help others, and don't fear death.
Practical advice.
Right. And then there's Alexander Imich. At 111, he said he never drank alcohol. His secret: I just haven't died yet.
Sometimes the simplest answers are the best.
Right. And the book also talks about artists who don't retire, like Hokusai, the Japanese artist. He set new goals for himself as he aged, wanted to create art that was full of life.
Never stop creating.
Exactly. And there are quotes from other artists like Christopher Plummer, Osamu Tezuka, all talking about their dedication to their work.
It's like your passion keeps you going.
It does. And there's this great quote from the once and future king: there is only one thing for it then, to learn. Learning keeps us young.
Lifelong learning.
Right. And they mentioned Edward O. Wilson, the naturalist. He kept exploring big questions even in his later years. And Ellsworth Kelly, the artist, he said aging brings clarity, new ways of seeing things.
So it's not all downhill.
Not at all. And Frank Gehry, the architect, reminds us to be patient, stay curious, stay engaged.
Don't lose that spark.
Exactly. So this section really highlights that community and staying active are key. And it all comes back to Ikigai. Having that purpose gives you a reason to stay busy, to create, to contribute.
Right. Okay, so we've heard from individual centenarians. But what about a whole community of them? Back to Ogimi.
Yeah. The book takes us back there, describes it as a place where time moves slowly. Life is in the present moment.
Sounds peaceful.
It is. And they talk about the welcome they received at the Center for the Support and Promotion of Well-Being. From these locals, Taira and Yuki, They were offered green tea and shikuwasa.
Those longevity staples.
Right. And they immediately started talking about moai, those social groups. It's like family there. Everyone looks out for each other.
That's amazing.
It is. And they point out that Ogimi doesn't have a real center. The hongs are spread out, nestled in the jungle. Maybe that contributes to the relaxed vibe.
Interesting. Like less hustle and bustle.
Yeah. And they described this meal they shared with Yuki, who was 88, and her friend, who was 99. Yuki gets her food from her garden and a local fisherman. She believes smiling and enjoying life is more important than any diet.
I love that.
Me too. And they talk about the community centers. There's one in each of the 17 neighborhoods. They organize all sorts of activities, cultural events, festivals, things to keep people active and connected.
It's like there's always something going on.
Right. And they even mention the Bunagaya. These are like mythical sprites that live in the jungle, part of the local folklore.
So there's this connection to nature, to the land.
Yeah, definitely. And they describe a birthday party they went to. The youngest person there was 83. There was singing, shikuwasa cake.
Sounds like a good time.
It was. And it wasn't just birthdays. Karaoke, festivals, all sorts of community events. They even talk about gate ball. It's this game that's popular with older folks. Low impact social.
Okay, I've never heard of gate ball.
It's kind of like croquet.
Yeah.
And the author mentions losing a match to a 104-year-old woman.
That's amazing.
I know, right? So obviously community is huge. But the book also talks about the spiritual side of things. The main religion in Okinawa is Ryukyu Shinto.
Shinto, like in mainland Japan.
Similar, but different. They blend various traditions, and they really emphasize the spirits of nature and respecting those spirits through rituals and festivals.
Okay, so it's like a nature-based spirituality.
Yeah, and they have these sacred sites called utaki and uganju, and women play a special role as mediums called yuta, which is different from mainland Shinto.
Interesting. And they also practice ancestor worship, right?
Yes. They have butsuden in their homes, which are family altars.
So there's a strong sense of family, of connection to the past.
Definitely. And they have this concept of mabui, which is like your personal essence, your spirit. And they believe it can get separated after death or even passed between people.
Wow, that's deep. So what's the overall takeaway from Ogimi?
Well, the book describes the lifestyle as intense but relaxed. People are always busy but never rushed.
Busy but happy. That sounds familiar.
Right. They have their Ikigai, their purpose, and they live by Washington Burnepp's essentials for happiness. Something to do, something to love, and something to hope for. The book also describes a visit to the local market. They sell all sorts of local produce, green tea, shikuwasa juice, and even longevity water.
Longevity water. I got to try it.
Oh, right. And on a statue of the Bunagaya, they found this inscription. It's like a message about staying active and welcoming those who seek long life.
So they're sharing their wisdom. That's cool.
Totally. And the book kind of distills it all down into secrets from the centenarians of Ogimi.
Ooh, I like secrets. Tell me more.
Okay, so first, cultivate a wide network of friends. Second, develop good habits. Third, nurture your friendships. Fourth, live an unhurried life. And fifth, be optimistic.
Those are good, like actionable advice.
Right. It's all about staying connected, being mindful, taking it slow, and having a positive attitude. And it's clear that these people are passionate about everything they do, no matter how small. They have this strong sense of yumaru, this feeling of interconnectedness. They help each other out, and they're always busy with something they enjoy.
Okay, so that's the Ogimi way of life. But what about their diet?
Ah, the Ikigai diet.
Right. We've got to talk about the food.
Absolutely. So first things first, Japan has the highest life expectancy in the world and the highest ratio of centenarians.
Oh, we already knew they were doing something right.
But Okinawa takes it even further. They have an even higher life expectancy than the rest of Japan.
Wow. So what's their secret?
Well, the book delves into the research of Dr. Makoto Suzuki and a book called the Okinawa Program. And what they found is that the Okinawan diet is incredibly diverse. Like centenarians there eat over 200 different foods regularly.
The 200, that's a lot of variety.
It is. And they average about 18 different foods per day. They also emphasize fruits and vegetables, aiming for at least 5 servings a day from at least 7 different colors.
The rainbow diet, I've heard of that.
Right. It's all about getting a wide range of nutrients.
So lots of fruits and veggies. What else?
Well, they also eat a lot of sweet potatoes, legumes, and soy products. Tofu, miso, natto. But they eat less grains, mostly whole grains, and they don't eat a ton of fish, even though they live on an island. And meat and dairy are pretty limited.
Interesting. So it's not all sushi and fish.
Nope. And another key element is the 80% rule.
The 80% rule.
Yeah, it's called hara hachibu. It means you eat until you're about 80% full.
So you stop before you're stuffed.
Exactly. And the book talks about how this might contribute to lower calorie intake overall.
Which has been linked to longevity, right?
Right. There's research suggesting that calorie restriction, without malnutrition, of course, can have benefits for longevity. It might have something to do with energy expenditure and how much energy your body uses to digest food.
So eating less could actually give you more energy.
Potentially. And it might also lower levels of this protein called IGF-1, which has been linked to aging.
Okay, so calorie restriction might be good. But do we know for sure that it extends human lifespan?
Well, that's still being debated. But there's pretty good evidence that it can protect against things like obesity, type 2 diabetes, inflammation, heart disease.
So even if it doesn't make you live longer, it can make those years healthier.
Exactly. The book also mentions intermittent fasting as an alternative to daily calorie restriction.
Like the 5.2 diet.
Yeah, things like that. It can give your digestive system a break.
So we've got calorie restriction. But what about specific foods? What are